Chapter 1. On the Dock by the Bay. I was just waking up. I could hear chimes in the distant 12 midnight. I was cold and wet and coming down from the DTs. I looked up, and I could see the underneath of the wharf above me. What the hell was I doing passed out on the docks? I had decided to quit drinking cold turkey. The irony of the phrase leapt into my head. I needed a drink. I just couldn't get a drink. Now I remembered. I got kicked out of the bar because I had no money. I got arrested on a D&D, and then 24 hours later I got tossed out of the drunk tank. I don't remember much after that. Now, I was lying down somewhere under the wharf, under a pier, waking up to the undulating motion of the floating dock with a stench of seawater and decaying vegetation. I was not the least bit happy. When I sat up, I found I was at the water's edge, and it was lapping up at the rotting wooden excuse for a dock I must have landed on. I know I had fallen because I was bruised and sore all over. I didn't seem to have any broken bones, so I hadn't been in a fight. No one had tossed me down here. I had managed to stumble here all on my own. I moved to climb up the ladder on the pier and get my bearings. When I straightened up, I discovered I was entangled in some kind of a net, and I was cursing my luck, trying to shake it loose as I was climbing the ladder. Suddenly, something from above hit me square on the chest and knocked me away from the ladder and the pier towards the water. I looked up as I was falling and could see the shadow of whoever threw whatever hit me. I yelled for help, and I hit the water. I was going down under the surface of the water. Whatever hit me was pretty heavy, and it and I were all tangled up in the net. That cursed net was either going to drown me or it was going to save my life. It was attached to the dock, and it kept me and the dingus from being pulled down further into the water. I could see some light through the water and decided that was up. I should have let go of the dingus, but I hung on to it. I don't know why. I tried to focus on the light from the pier as I looked up through the water. The net had stopped pulling down, and though I was entangled, it was taut where it had been attached to the dock. I used it to pull myself back to the surface. When I broke through the water, I took several deep breaths of air. The light from the pier waved through the mist. I heard a machine start up, and a secondary light moved around above and then disappeared. I climbed out of the water onto the dock. The dingus, which I now realized was a large bag, hung from the dock, entangled in the net. I was soaked, and I began to shiver from the cold. I pulled the bag up onto the dock. I was shaking so badly I couldn't open the latch on the bag. I had to sit down with my back against the ladder and try the latches again. Finally, I was able to open it up. There were a couple of weights in the bag. I pulled them out and tossed them into the water. I rummaged around in the bag, examining the contents a little more. There were men's clothes, a suit, shoes, underwear, a train ticket, notebook, passport without a picture, some other odds and ends, and an old Navy Colt 44. Shit. I wondered why someone would throw the bag into the bay. Clearly to get rid of it, but why? The gun? I shook my head even more than it was already shaking. The inside of the bag was made of some kind of rubbery material, watertight. I checked the suit size, a tad big for me, but it was mostly dry and I wasn't. I started to strip off my clothes. It must have been a comical sight as I shivered while stripping. I used what I wasn't going to wear to dry off. Then I started putting clothes back on. I wasn't one for t-shirts, but I was cold. I finished dressing and suddenly realized how good it could feel to be dry again. I climbed up the ladder with the bag and found a bench to sit on. I looked around. No one had seen me. I took a deep breath and explored the bag some more. There was something familiar about it. Not this particular bag, but I had seen others like it. I found what I was looking for at the bottom of the bag. If you weren't looking for it, you wouldn't have found it, a hidden pocket. This one was well hidden. I expected the pocket to come up empty. I was wrong. A business card with an address, keys, and 50 double sawbucks, $1,000. This bag sure didn't belong to whoever threw it over. Nobody throws away $1,000. It was a running bag. I had seen them before. In another life I was an MP in the army. Men who were not quite straight would keep a hidden bag for a quick getaway, and that's what this was. Whoever it belonged to wasn't going to come looking for it. My guess was he had already made his final journey. I wonder if his body was floating somewhere else in the bay. I took out the Colt, weighed it in my hand. I brought my arm back, getting ready to hoist it into the bay, and stopped. The gun was going to be bad news. Probably used to kill somebody. Tossing it into the bay was the smart thing to do. It was the one thing in the bag that would bring me trouble. I lowered my arm and looked at the gun again, weighing it in my hand. What the hell? It might be leverage if I needed it. I decided to keep it and put it back into the bag. I had a couple of bad years, and fate was a fickle bitch, and at this moment she seemed to be smiling on me, so I decided to take the ride for a while. I searched through the bag a little more. There was a money belt in the hidden pocket, and I put most of the money into it. I kept a couple of $100 for my immediate needs. I latched up the bag and got up to leave the pier. I was suddenly hungry, and I went looking for the nearest all-night diner. I needed coffee and food. I wanted a scotch. Against character, I went for the food. As I sat in the diner having coffee and something to eat, I looked through the bag to see what else I could find out. The card with an address was a business card. It said Discreet Inquiries, Inc. It was the business card of a Seamus, but why hidden? A phone number, an address, no name, discreet inquiries indeed. I had the feeling that someone had got dead because of a discreet inquiry. If I had any sense, I would lose the bag, keep the money, and live well, at least for a while. That is when it occurred to me. Maybe it was because I was finally warm, or had food in my stomach, or I just got over being dumped into the bay. I was close to the top of the ladder. In a sense, I was at the most precarious position. Whoever hit me with the bag, he had been waiting for me. He was not throwing away the bag. He was throwing away my life, killing me. But who? Why? The address was 891 Post, Suite 401. A couple of miles from the wharf, not too bad a part of town. Fate had not been good to me today. Yesterday, it was past midnight, so now I have money in my pocket, a full stomach, and a curious nature, particularly when someone tries to kill me. I decided to take a walk to the address on the card. Maybe I would get some answers. I could always lose the bag later. I paid my tab, left a generous tip, and left the diner. As I was walking towards Post, I could have sworn I heard a woman laughing in the background. The outside door to 891 Post was locked. One of the keys on the ring opened the door to a lobby which was deserted. Curiouser and curiouser. It looked like it might be a small business building. There was an elevator across from a receptionist's desk, and down a short hall was a door that said stairs. I took the stairs. I figured it would be better if I didn't run into anyone this late. Fewer people would be using the stairs. I climbed to the 4th floor. The hallway was empty. The building was eerily quiet. Another key on the ring opened the door to Suite 401, where discreet inquiries were made. I entered the suite. Suite, there was a laugh. The room was small, a couple of chairs for clients, a sofa, a desk for the receptionist, a coat tree, a locked file cabinet, a phone, an intercom, and dust on the desk. I figured there might not have been a receptionist at least for a week or so anyway. I shrugged, closed the door, and made sure it was locked. I let myself into the inner office. This was better. A nice sofa, power desk, client chairs, a really nice chair behind the desk, file cabinet, and a coat tree with an overcoat and a brown fedora. The desk was neat, clean blotter, a pen and pencil set that was monogrammed with M and P, a phone and the other end of the intercom. There were a couple of doors off to one side. One turned out to be a closet, and the other to a small bathroom with a sink and toilet. I suddenly had a yen for hot water on my face. I dropped the bag in the office, and to my surprise there was hot water. Afterward I wiped my face with a towel and looked around the office. The only light came in from the street through the window with discreet inquiries written backwards. Some of this didn't make sense. I don't think the running bag belonged to Mr. Discreet Inquiries, so why were his keys in it? I wondered if he knew who was not coming back, or possibly who was interested in killing me. The outer office was almost Spartan, but the inner office had comfort written all over it. This part of town was all right, but the office just didn't fit somehow. Suddenly, I was very tired. I really wanted a drink, but I knew that was the last thing I needed to do right now. I went back out to the outer office to the door and put a chair under the knob and jammed it home. I went back into the inner office and took the Colt out of the bag. I checked to see if it was loaded. It had 5 cartridges in the cylinder. I hadn't really done anything wrong, but I was an uninvited guest, and the Colt should provide sufficient persuasion for anyone taking exception to my presence. At least it should give me time to tell my side of things. I remember yawning and lying down on the sofa. I wondered what time it was.